Okay, so now we're fixing to take one of our wheels that would get shipped to you just like you see right down here with the box with the beadlock wheel in it and the ring on the top with the bolts in it. But before I pull this out, I kind of want to talk a little bit about bead thicknesses. We really have to pay attention to the tolerances so that the inner ring rests upon something on the inside ID of the inner ring. With what we've done with beadlocks now, and I'm going to show you a couple of different beadlock rings. And one is a steel ring, which has a better offset in it to run a little bit thicker bead. It's something that I advise most trail riders to use if the fitment is correct, because it's a lot less maintenance ring. Whereas aluminum, once you use the aluminum ring and you rub it up against stuff, it looks bad from then on. The steel rings is black, so you can make it black again. So for just the average trail rider, the problem is where you have to worry about is the bead thicknesses nowadays. With the BFGs, with the Goodyear MTRs, you can run the steel rings, no really big problems. When you start getting into the thin beaded tires, and I'm saying tire bead thicknesses, this is a place where DOT doesn't help us out much. On a wheel, like I showed you earlier in the other videos, a DOT bead is only a 1/2 inch wide, which is about what this one is right here, about a 1/2 inch. But if you go to like a Swamper or you go to a Pit Bull, you can get as thick as 3/4 of an inch. So when you have a 3/4 inch thick bead tire, you got to use spacers. In Raceline, you can get spacers to space the ID of the ring, and I'll show you all this as it goes together here in just a few minutes. But I wanted to touch on this a little bit because it's something you need to pay attention to. Thin beaded tires almost always have to have the aluminum outer ring regardless. Like I said a few years ago, the beads were so thick we never had to worry about it. But for some reason, they're either trying to make the tires lighter, cheaper, or whatever. They have really started concentrating on making thin beaded tires. And even some of the BFGs are really thin now. Nittos are a thin beaded tire. Coopers are thin beaded tires. All these will require you to run the aluminum rings. And you can go to our website, and we have a great photo on there, and I'll have them get it into this video too, that kind of shows you how that looks, and it's in color so that you can see what part's the spacer, what part's the bead of the tire, and then the beadlock ring and the beadlock wheel. And that gives you a little more information of what we're trying to accomplish here. Really, basically what we're trying to do is that once we tighten the beadlock ring down on the tire and the wheel assembly, we want the ring to be perfectly flat so that the bolt and the washer sits perfectly flat, so that when you put the torque on these bolts, it's an equal torque all the way around the bolts. If you tighten the bolts down on a thick beaded tire and the ID of the ring bows inward, it causes all the torque to be on the outside edge of the bolts. So let's say if you had a bolt that broke at 24 foot-pounds and you put 18 foot-pounds on it, that whole 18 is going to be on one side of that bolt because the ring is laying down. And that's where we come in and we stick this spacer in there to bring that level of the ring perfectly perpendicular with the floor. So we're going to get started here. So we'll have some pictures of this come in for you. So what we have down here is we have a brand new aluminum ring with the 32 bolts. Gosh, I just love opening that presents. Unwrapping them, so much fun. Raceline goes through a lot to make sure that these wheels get to you in nice, pristine condition. So you can see all this stuff. Oh, look here, an instruction sheet. Not many of us know what that is, right? We don't even go to it till we have a problem. I suggest you read through it because there's some shortcuts in there. It might help you a little bit. But most of us just go right at it. And beadlocks have been around forever. So we have our bolts. We have our monster beadlock. Today we're going to use a 17 by 9.5. And we decided to put a BFG on here today. So, ring, bolts, wheel, tire, and let's get this little impact over here. I use an impact. Hope the batteries are charged. And this just kind of help you get through it a little bit quicker. Sure, you can use a 3/8 ratchet, take your time and go all the way around. I like to kind of go a little quicker because you got 32 bolts in a wheel. 64 times 2 is 128 bolts. Okay. It's a lot of bolts, but it's there because it makes the tire and wheel assembly last you and you don't have problems. Now, a lot of times, today I'm going to use a wheel, but you can use a 5-gallon bucket. And this kind of makes it a little easier sometimes. That way the tire is off so that the bead of the tire doesn't lay on the floor and you're working against the tire to get it down on the wheel. Okay? Now then, back to the coffee cup and the soap and the water. So what we want to do is to lube this side right here up so that we can get it down over the wheel easy. Now that it's all lubed up, we can roll over here to our wheel. And like I say, you can put this when you get ready to mount it, but for slipping it down over the top, we want the wheel to be solid on the floor. See how, that was pretty easy, wasn't it? Okay. So now this is where I would slide my wheel underneath and pick it all up. So you can see that the tire is off the ground now, so that you're not working with the whole weight of that tire on it. You immediately go around, push the bead down into the seat here, and on these wheels there is a seat, and we'll have a picture of that, and you can see that in the drawing. Now we take our aluminum ring, we line the bolts up by physically looking. Everything looks good there. Now we take our bolts. I just lay them down in the middle here. Give me a comfortable seat. What I like to do is I like to start the 12, the 6, the 9, and the 3 o'clock bolts. Those 4 bolts kind of help you get it to all go down straight and get the tire all set in before you start getting around with everything else. Just kind of helps. So stick it in, tighten that down just a little bit, go straight across. The 9 o'clock position and the 3 o'clock position. Now you noticed I didn't put any lubricant on the outside of this because with the aluminum ring it's really not necessary. But with the steel ring is built a little bit different. The steel ring has a 5-degree angle right here, which is the same angle as the bead of the tire. So this is going to slide down in the tire like a cone. And so this ring is going to self-align itself up on the tire, and then the bolts and the washers line the ring straight up on the wheel. That keeps everything where you can balance it. You can balance a square block, but as soon as you put it on the ground and try to roll it, it doesn't roll so good. So that's why with the steel ring, I always put the lubrication down. With the aluminum ring, it's not so much necessary because you're not sliding anything. All we're doing is sandwiching between 2 flat pieces. We're not trying to angle the ring down into the tire. So like I say, I take my impact and I just move from one side to the other, and this is just a little 3/8. You don't need to be putting no 1/2-inch impact on here. Okay, so now we're kind of down. I kind of physically look to see that the tire is straight on the ring, because almost every tire made has a molding mark that you can judge. And as I can see here, it all looks good right here. And that's the advantage of the monster wheels with the register step in it, that it kind of pre-lines everything up and takes a lot of the load off the rings and the bolts is back onto the wheel with that step register in it, which you can see in our diagram with the spacers. Now, had this been a thicker beaded tire, we would have took these spacers, and these spacers would have been laid around underneath this ring on top of the ring that the bolts go in. And these are 1/8 inch, and depending on the ring and the thickness of the bead of the tire. What you want to see is, think about it this way, you want to be able to smash the bead of the tire 1/8 of an inch. And that's usually enough to smash it to where it's the O-ring of this air system, is the bead of the tire now. And so you want to be able to smash that O-ring enough, and about 1/8 of an inch of a smash, just so you kind of know, because you can't really see that. But that's why we go to the 16 to 18 foot-pounds of torque based on what we know right now. And as you can see, this ring is pretty much straight right now. Now we're going to start putting in some of the other bolts. All right, now that we've kind of got everything started, you just want to make sure that everything is nice and turns really easy, and just, you know, we use a hardened steel insert, which again, we will show you some of those diagrams. And the hardened steel insert is a big difference between Raceline wheels and my competitors' wheels. They want to drill and tap the aluminum. We put a hardened steel insert from the back side that can be replaced without dismounting the tire. If for some reason you break a bolt, you merely tap the insert out, but most of the time you can screw the bolt right out of the insert, put the insert back in, put the new bolt, and as you tighten it back down, it sucks the insert into the wheel and you're done. That's your repair. Whereas of my competitors, they want to drill and tap the aluminum. Well, once you strip that hole, what do? The wheel goes in a pile in the back with all the rest of the wheels until you get time to go out there with the drill and tap and work all those wheels over again. So that's one of the really big differences between Raceline and most of the other wheel brands. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go crossing back and forth, and just, I'm not hammering on these bolts. We're just kind of going back and forth. No really set pattern, just as long as you're going pretty much across. Because we started the first 4 bolts, we really don't have to worry about anything shifting. We're like good to go. So we can go through here and we can kind of get these all tightened down. Okay, so we kind of went around and we kind of snugged these down with this lightweight, not very much torque right here. This would be the part where we would grab our torque wrench out and we would finish up the last step by crisscrossing, just like you would do the head bolts. And we like to see 16 pounds, but you can go to 18. What you don't want, you know, is this gap. You stick your finger in this gap. With this tire and wheel, once we get this all torqued down, this will be solid. We won't need the spacer in there. But if for some reason this tight and you've seen that ring start to bow inward, my suggestion would be to stop at that point and get your spacers. If you have any question, buy the spacers right up front, because there's always going to be somebody who need them. Because I'm telling you, the bead thicknesses on these tires is just, there's no consistency to it. DOT does not break the bell on the guys to get it to a 1/2 inch bead like DOT wheels are built. Okay, so now if I had my torque wrench here, we'd go in here and we'd set the torque, we'd go around to probably a 10-pound torque, and then maybe to a 14-pound torque, and then maybe to our 16 and our 18. You have to understand that when you're torquing, you're trying to smash a rubber O-ring between 2 pieces of metal. It's not like 2 pieces of metal going together and being solid and the torque setting right up and you don't have a problem. We're making it adjust because of the rubber, smashing of the rubber. So that's why you want to X back and forth and you want to go around, because each time you go around, you're going to see that that bolt loosened up. Well, it's because we're smashing that beaded tire down onto the steel bead package that's in the bead of the tire. And that's the object of this game, is to get it tight enough on the rubber to seal the air, yet tight enough on the steel bead cord that is inside the bead of the tire to secure it to the wheel. We never go over 20 foot-pounds. 22 foot-pounds is probably max on a 5/16 bolt. So that's kind of all that. And after you do your torquing specs, it's easy to air it up. Just bring it up here and slow your bucket out of the way, and you can see a gap right here. And so what you do, you put your air on this side, you immediately just push your foot against this, pushing on this, holding the tire back this way, and air will go right in and it'll air up. You air it up to your poundage that you want it until it pops out onto the bead. And it's time to put it on the vehicle along with the other 3 and hit the trail. So that's Raceline 101, mounting beadlock wheels here at Raceline. Anytime, our technical advisors here are very well educated and experienced in answering all the questions that you might have. It's a 1-800-52-WHEEL, and you can get in contact with somebody that can help you in the racing division here at Raceline Wheels. Home offices here in Garden Grove, California. My name is Greg. It's been a pleasure to show you as much as I know. There's lots of things out there though that we don't know. We're always wanting to learn. Share the information with your friends so that they might have a better experience. So again, from Raceline Wheels here in Garden Grove, this is Greg signing off. See you at the trails. Be safe.